Happy New Year! 2025 is here and most people are setting their New Year's resolutions. Now, I don't really believe in all that anymore. It's often far too easy to fall into the trap of over-promising yourself with stuff like, I'm gonna go to the gym every week, or I'm gonna stop eating whatever, just for you to fall off the wagon as soon as those January blues set in. Been there, done that. What I'm doing this year is instead setting out longer term goals, themes for the year. Things I want to accomplish this year that are less rigid than a resolution to stop drinking 6 cups of tea a day. We both know that ain't gonna happen. So at the end of 2024, I sat down to figure out what my goals are for this year, and I've come up with a relatively short list that can be split into 3 themes. Essentially the main 3 areas of my life. So we've got personal goals, academic goals, and then goals to do with science communication and content creation. We'll get to those later. I need your help with one of them. But before I go on to tell you what my goals are, I thought I'd do a little recap on 2024. We started the year with me 3 months into my PhD in computational astrophysics. Over the next 12 months, I competed at the Newcastle Scottish Country Dance Festival, the team I taught won, and I went to my first conference in Vienna. I had weekends back home in Scotland, dancing in Cambridge and in Edinburgh, and I had a couple of weeks on holiday in Ireland with my partner. Friends came to visit from the Netherlands, and I started work on my first paper less than a year into my PhD. That all sounds great until you take a step back from the highlight reel and see that in that time I also abandoned making PhD vlogs, became incredibly inconsistent with posting anything online, and had a long period of burnout and stress, almost completely abandoned doing exercise and eating well, and I'm still adjusting to life in Wales, away from family and friends back home. In setting goals for this year, I'm trying to make this better, to fix the things that haven't gone so well in 2024 and get back on track on what I think my life should look like. This year is going to be busy. There are multiple conferences on the horizon, I've got holidays planned in with my partner, and at some point in 2025 I'll be pausing my PhD research to go on an industry placement organised by my Centre for Doctoral Training. So yeah, a lot going on makes these goals seem even more important. To that end, let me just explain how I'm going to talk about these goals. Obviously I'm going to talk to you about what they are, but what's more important are probably the whys, hows, and whens of these goals. Why are they important to me? How do I plan to meet them? And on what timescales are these goals going to be evaluated on? So with that in mind, let's start with the personal ones. My first goal for 2025 is rather cliched. It's to lose weight. I know this isn't something everyone will be comfortable hearing about, so if that's you, here's the timestamp to get past all of that. Now, weight loss can be a tough area to tackle, and if it's not done for the right reasons, it can be really dangerous. So let's first talk about why this is a goal for me. Ultimately, I'm not happy with how I look, and I have data on how things have changed. 4 years ago, I was a healthy weight, and I liked how I looked. Now, this just isn't the case. I've since gained about 18 kilos through a mix of eating too much of the wrong stuff and not doing enough exercise. I want to get back to where I was 4 years ago, both from a body image perspective and a fitness one. What I'm not trying to do is hit some arbitrary target on a scale. That way, danger lies. This is entirely about improving my own health and my own opinion of myself. Health warnings out of the way, how am I going to do this? I'm a physicist, so to me, weight loss appears simple. It's an energy balance equation. If you put more energy into the system than it uses, it'll store that energy. If you use more energy than you put in, those stores get used up. The human body is essentially a biological machine. It stores that energy as fat. Reducing the input, eating less, while increasing energy use, doing more exercise, equals weight loss. Simple. In reality, losing weight is rarely that simple. I, for one, love a good snack. But it does present the solution. Stop overeating and do more exercise. My overeating is twofold. First off, I snack too much, particularly when I work from home because they're easily accessible. Solution part 1, buy fewer snacks. Second problem is portion sizes. They ballooned a lot during my undergrad when I was doing a lot of exercise, so when I stopped doing that in my final year, that caused a problem. Solution part 2, track my intake and keep it reasonable. I'm a scientist, I love data, and I've found that this can help in the past. The problem I've had with previous weight loss efforts is that while I've got the intake down a bit, I didn't increase the energy use. I need to exercise more. I got a bit of a head start on this goal back in November. I've been doing my best to cycle to work even when it's cold, only using the bus if it's actually chucking it down. And I've got back into swimming, something I used to do 3 times a week, but stopped doing at uni. So there's the how, but a goal is kind of nothing without some sort of deadline. Since starting to try losing weight back in November, I lost about 3 kilos before Christmas. However, a lot of celebrating has undone some of that, but I think with a vague target in mind, I think I can get back to a healthy weight by about June, and it's absolutely possible by the end of this year. Moving on from weight loss, let's talk about my second personal goal, fixing my routine and particularly my sleep schedule. This has been a big struggle for far too long, and this year it really started to cause me problems. When I don't have a routine, I don't know what to expect in a given day or week, which means that when my sleep schedule gets out of whack, my routine goes to hell and everything breaks down. I get stressed. The bare minimum of work gets done, and things that I want to do, like making YouTube videos, rather go by the wayside. This then stresses me out even more, and you get the idea. How am I going to try and fix this? Fortunately, in 2024, I had some sessions with a counsellor who helped me identify the things that negatively affect me in this way, and made some recommendations for how to fix it, and things have got a lot better. Who knew? Therapy works! Okay, I'm maybe not completely fixed, but I'm less of a mess than I was. What I've established is the main cause of a lot of the stress and routine disruption I experience is that my sleep habits are not helping me at all. I do not have a consistent sleep schedule, particularly a consistent wake-up time. I work from home 2 days a week and in the office the other 3, so this means my wake-up time has been yo-yoing from one day to the next, depending on whether my commute is 5 kilometres or 5 meters. Getting this more consistent I think will help. It'll help me be less stressed, it'll let me get my PhD back to normal working hours, and it'll free up more time to make videos and, honestly, have more time to relax. I think swimming is actually going to really help with this. I need to get up earlier to have time to go for a pre-work swim, and I think trying to get up at the same time every day, regardless of whether I'm going swimming or not, will really help. There will, of course, still be days where the dopamine isn't there, my brain still works against me more than I'd like, but I think I can do this. As for a timescale, I would love to be consistent by March so I can plan out more of this year reliably, but I definitely need to get this sorted by September, when I'm due to go on an industry placement as part of my PhD. My final personal goal is less specific. I want to be a better friend. Keeping up my friendships when I move away is something I've never been good at. I haven't spoken to school friends nearly enough since I went to uni, and the same is true of university friends since I started the PhD. I want to fix that. To that end, I'm going to make more of an effort this year than I have last year to message friends, arrange calls, and try to meet up with people. Timescale wise, honestly, just as soon as possible. Any friends from school and university watching, please get in touch. Moving on from personal goals, let's talk about my academic goals. I'm currently in the second year of my astrophysics PhD, and this, rather unsurprisingly, takes up the majority of my time during the week. I'm also well aware that I have a 6-month industry placement later in the year, which will straddle the end of this year and the start of next. So my opportunity to do a load of research in 2025 is going to be a little bit more limited than it's been in 24. With that in mind, my first academic goal is to get my first paper published in a scientific journal. If you're not in academia, you might be wondering why this is so pressing that it's one of my main 3 goals for 2025. Papers are important, they're how we share our research with other scientists, and now I'm about a quarter of the way through the second year of my PhD, and the research for this project was finished 3 to 4 months ago. I don't want this paper hanging over my head anymore. I want it out there. So, the plan. Fortunately, I've not just been twiddling my thumbs for 4 months, I have most of the paper drafted already. The introduction and methods sections are essentially complete, and my supervisor is in the process of reviewing my results section. There are so many comments. The discussion and conclusion currently do not exist, though they are smaller sections. To get this paper done, I'm going to set aside a chunk of my work week to getting this finished. Every week until it's done. The paper still has to go to collaborators for them to have a look at it and make any comments they want to make before it can be submitted, but I'm hoping I can get it to them by the end of February and possibly submit the paper around the start of April. This is ambitious, and it might end up taking a lot longer, but that's the goal. It's meant to be ambitious. On a similar vein of sharing my research, my second academic goal is to present a talk at a scientific conference. Conferences are the most up-to-date exchange of current scientific research. As you can see from my ventures in paper writing, there's a pretty sizable lag between finishing the research and publishing the paper. Conferences are much more current. There's more work-in-progress research presented. Things can be a little less polished, and they're really fun to boot. I presented a poster about my work back in February in Vienna. This year, I want to give a longer talk. The how is a little out of my hands. Other people have to decide my talk is worth putting on a conference programme, but currently there are two on my radar. The first is a meeting of one of the collaborations I'm part of, taking place in a few weeks at the University of Sussex. The other is the National Astronomy meeting in Durham in July. I've already submitted an abstract, a short summary of my work to the collaboration conference, and I'll be submitting the abstract for the National Astronomy meeting in about a month or so, I think. Those are also the timescales I'll either get this done in, January, July, or I'll be scrambling to give a talk somewhere towards the end of the year. My final academic goal is again a bit more nebulous. I want to get more comfortable answering questions on my research area. You see, while my PhD is in galaxy evolution, specifically in studying the circumgalactic medium, which is a large, hot, diffuse reservoir of gas around a galaxy, I didn't really study galaxies that much in my undergrad. My master's project was on star formation. So while I think I now have a pretty good grasp of the specific niche that my PhD sits in, what's becoming abundantly clear in talking to others and giving talks in the department is that I'm lacking a lot on the wider knowledge around my field, looking at galaxies themselves, galaxy clusters, feedback processes, and how the galaxy disk and the circumgalactic medium interact. I need a better understanding of all of that. Then, linking back to the previous point on presenting at conferences, something that's often expected is that simulators like me have a good grasp of the observational side too. This expectation doesn't often go the other way, but it would still be good to have an understanding of galaxy observations, I guess. To do this, I'm going to need to read a lot more papers and possibly some textbooks. But I know my brain, and for me to really internalise this, I think I need to try and write it up and communicate it in some way. So I'm going to compile a sort of galaxies wiki, something summarising everything I'm learning with references, rather than just an ever-growing list of markdown files with some notes in them. As for a timescale, well, I'm hoping to present at the National Astronomy meeting in July, so that seems like a good sort of deadline to be confident on this stuff. And that brings us on to my science communication and content creation goals for 2025. Like I said at the start of the video, 2024 was a bit of a rocky year for consistency, but we saw some successes in long form and particularly short form video. My first SciComm goal is to be more consistent with short-form video. What September and particularly Advent of Astronomy showed me is that short-form video does wonders for extending the reach of my content. In every single metric possible, December 2024 was the best month for me on YouTube, with more views from shorts than any month previously and an associated huge jump in subscribers. Hello, if you came from Advent of Astronomy, thank you for being here. The problem with my short-form content is that I either do loads of it or essentially nil. With the exception of September and December, I didn't post more than one short in any month of 2024. So let's try and fix that. I want to be uploading at least one short video per month to YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, and TikTok. What these will be, I'm not sure. They might be short versions of long-form videos, they might be on topics that don't work well as longer videos, or I might use them to sort of test the waters on a topic before committing to a longer video. All going to plan, I should have at least 6 shorts out by June. Ideally, I will have more. On the topic of being more consistent, my next goal is to be better at using non-video platforms. I've always been better at video content, but there's something to be said for non-video content too, like posts on microblogging sites like Blue Sky or Threads, and stories and static posts on platforms like Instagram. Posting on these platforms also helps fill the gaps between videos in a relatively low effort way, so I don't disappear for long periods of time. So to that end, I'm going to aim to post at least once a week on my Instagram story, and the same on Threads and Blue Sky. I'm also going to aim for at least one Instagram post per fortnight, so one post every 2 weeks. I think this is going to take some time to get into the habit of, but I think I can get this done consistently by a mid-year check-in on these goals in about June. And now we come to my final goal for 2025, which is about making my content feasible long-term. I need to free up my content creation finances, and I'm hoping that you'll help me out with this. First, some background. I've been making science videos for almost 5 years now. I also live stream on Twitch, and I post short videos to YouTube, Shorts, Instagram Reels, and TikTok. And doing this isn't free. Over the last 5 years, I've spent a good amount of money on kit, money well spent for sure, and I have regular expenses to cover software, including the Adobe suite and things like my website. Covering these costs is tricky. For the first few years, I covered most of it out of pocket. I could afford to spend a little of my monthly surplus on it. Twitch subscriptions and ad revenue covered some too, and since I joined the YouTube Partner Program, I've managed to cover expenses most months. But this has its drawbacks. First off, it relies on very frequent uploads to YouTube or sinking a lot of time into Twitch. Realistically, it's a combination of both. Essentially, I have to focus on quantity rather than quality. Secondly, it relies on those uploads doing consistently well to generate the ad revenue to cover my expenses. This is not the case. Ad revenue fluctuates wildly with video performance, further necessitating frequent uploads. Essentially, the way I fund my content requires me to sink vast amounts of time into live streaming, or sacrifice the quality of my content in favour of quantity, or engage in the YouTube clickbait stuff that nobody likes. Freeing my finances will let me put a stop to all of that and start making content again on my own terms. There are two main ways for me to do this: cut expenses and increase revenue. I think I need to do both. On cutting expenses, this seems easier, but it's harder than you'd think. I've spent the last 5 years using the Adobe suite, which includes Adobe Premiere for video editing, After Effects for graphics, Audition for audio, and Photoshop for photos, amongst other things. I'm really used to these softwares, so finding alternatives, particularly free alternatives, is tricky. But Adobe currently saps about 30 quid a month out of me, and that's going to rise as they bump their costs, and eventually it will rise a lot when I stop being a student. So I'm currently in the process of de-Adobeifying my life, and that'll do wonders for reducing my expenses. As for increasing revenue, this is where I could use some help. I'm starting a Patreon. If somehow you've not heard of Patreon, it's a platform that lets you support me directly with a small monthly fee. I'm starting this off with two very modest tiers: a £3 tier called Adblock Restitution and a £5 Education Enabler tier. Both tiers will get you early access to videos before they appear on YouTube. I'm planning to make a monthly behind the scenes vlog sharing what I'm up to and how I'm making my content, and you'll get your name on the wall of thanks on my website once I update it. On top of that, Education Enabler patrons will get their name in the video credits, as well as exclusive extra content, extended interviews and outtake reels occasionally. Between Patreon and getting free of Adobe, ideally by March, I should be consistently in the black and can start to build up a bit of a war chest for new equipment upgrades and some more ambitious projects down the line. I know things are tight for many of you at the moment, so please don't feel pressure to support me financially through Patreon. Sharing a video is more than enough support. But if you enjoy my content, and it seems that you do, you've made it towards the end of the video, and you'd like to help me make it better long term, then I'd appreciate your support at patreon.com/Thomas Rintoul. So those are my goals for 2025. I think this can be a really good year for me, for my academic career, and for my online content. If you're new and you've made it all the way to the end of the video, hello! Thank you for being here. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope you'll be as good as to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss future videos. Since I soft launched the Patreon at the end of last year, here are the names of my Education Enabler patrons, or patron. Thank you so much for your support. All that's left me to say now is thank you very much for watching all the way to the end. Here is to a great new year, and I'll see you in the next one.